regardless of any bilateral disagreements, the COP should be a place where all parties feel at liberty to come and to negotiate on climate action.
While it is essential on negotiation, the first week of COP29 has concluded without any significant progress on climate finance, especially negotiations about a new climate finance goal due to concerns about equitable responsibility for climate action.
COP29 is a finance COP. We need more financing for the vulnerable nations. We need to make sure that the vulnerable nation will not just suffer again and again and again, but to actually have that capacity to save the lives of the people and their communities.
Let's take a look at what climate finance is and why is it important in the global efforts for climate action. Simply put, climate finance refers to financial resources and instruments that are used to support action on climate change. It can be used for different activities, including mitigation, adaptation, and resilience building. It can come from a variety of sources, public and private, national or international, bilateral or multilateral. And it can also take several forms, including grants, loans, donations, equities, green bonds, sovereign bonds, guarantees, debts, swaps, and carbon trading. But for all its flexibility, countries often have a hard time agreeing on the specifics of who should contribute, how much, and how. Let's find out why. The underlying principle of climate finance is that of climate justice. This means that countries that have been historically responsible for carbon emissions and in turn climate change should contribute a lion's share of the finance commitment, which essentially means the developed nations according to the UN. Not only this, these funds should then be provided to developing and least developed nations to help them navigate climate change, as well as to countries that are disproportionately affected by climate change, especially island and coastal states, to assist in addressing loss and damages. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change has provided a financial mechanism to streamlining climate financing. This mechanism also serves the Kyoto Protocol as well as the Paris Agreement. The mechanism has been made accountable to the COP, which decides on its policies, programming, priorities, and eligibility criteria for funding. The main operating entity for climate finance is the Global Environment Facility, which has been performing this function since the convention came into force in 1994. The GEF also manages the two special funds created by the Conference of Parties. These are the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. There are others as well, including the Adaptation Fund established under the Kyoto Protocol in 2001 and the Green Climate Fund created in 2010. The seemingly complex process of climate finance, however, has one singular aim.
But in all this talk of numbers, among the many acronyms, let's not lose sight of what's really at stake. Cleaner air across the world's megacities, commuters no longer choking as they make their way to work and their return back home. Households who can sleep soundly, knowing a flood or storm will not wash away everything they hold dear. Stopping the devastation and damage, improving lives and livelihoods, and building a better world for everyone.
All of these funds, except the Adaptation Fund at present, serve the Paris Agreement as well. The Paris Agreement from COP15 is important because for the first time, it brought all nations into a common cause, undertake ambitious efforts to combat climate change, with enhanced support to assist developing countries. It lays down long-term temperature goals and global goals on adaptation, prioritizes averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage, and requires nations to put forward their best possible nationally determined contributions. In effect, the Paris Agreement has charted a new course in the global climate effort?
What question were we asking here? It was a very clear and strong question and the right question. What does it take to deliver on Paris in terms of investment, and how do we finance that investment? That's how we understand the question of climate finance. It's finance for a purpose, it's finance for that investment.
Now, there has been a lot of talk of a new climate finance goal at the COP29, the New Collective Qualified Goal, or NCQG. NCQG is a key element of the Paris Agreement. It seeks to fill persistent gaps in climate finance, build on the 2009 target of $100 billion, and provide a more realistic and ambitious financial framework. Through the Cancun Agreement of 2010, developed country parties had committed to a goal of jointly mobilizing $100 billion per year by 2020 for climate finance. At the Paris Agreement, this goal was confirmed along with a decision to set a new collective quantified goal from a flow of $100 billion per year before 2025. So, what is the magic number in the current negotiation?
That number for emerging markets and developing economies outside China is 2.4 trillion a year in 2030. Of course, the whole path matters, but in order not to get sort of lost in too many numbers, we focus on 2030 and we point and highlight the number 2.4 trillion as the overall investment needs. So of that 2.4 trillion, we're assuming that 1.4 comes from domestic resource mobilization. 2.4 overall investment, 1.4 domestic resource mobilization. That means 1 trillion externally.
COP29 is indeed a finance COP. However, the draft for new goals has been rejected by China, as well as the G77 members. The main reason for this is non-inclusion of reference to means of implementation that has been the main demand of developing country parties. The need for financing climate action, however, is immediate, urgent, and immense.
We are here at COP29, and one of the most important decisions that we have here is the design and approval of a new collective quantified goal. This goal is very, very important because it's on climate finance and is reflecting or should reflect the needs and priorities of developing countries. What we are demanding from developed countries is to take leadership, take responsibility, and put a good quantum that really reflects the needs that we all have in the southern hemisphere. I think one of the most important points is that this is not a matter of lack of money. It's not a matter of money. For instance, if we reduce the fossil fuel subsidies, if we tax the richest, we could be already generating sources to pay for climate change. So it's not a lack of money, it's a lack of a political will to allocate that money where it is needed.
Negotiations are still underway. COP29 will conclude on November 22nd. There is not much hope that productive results will be achieved. Added to this are concerns about the US presidency under Donald Trump, a hard climate change denier. Meanwhile, climate change marches on, bringing forth more disasters, claiming new victims every day. Time is running out. We must run faster and better. Bureau Report, India Today Global.